Hi, I'm Danny Attias. I'm the Chief Digital and Information Officer at London Business School. I'm only 1 month into the role, quite new into the sector, into the education sector. But ultimately, my responsibilities, like any Chief Digital and Information Officer, are around digital data and transformation. The school's been around for a long time, since the 60s, and there's a little bit of work to be done to get ourselves to the modern state and get ourselves as efficient and optimized as possible to give our students the most digitally frictionless journey, probably the best way, or difficult to say, possible, and really create a platform and an environment where they can benefit from lifelong learning. When it comes to sustainability practices, particularly in the role of a CIO or a CDIO, I think there are a few different ways of looking at it. And one thing actually is to break down the word sustainability. So I think at the moment, quite rightly so, we hear sustainability and we think about the climate, we think about carbon, and we think about climate change. And that's fine. But really, sustainability means you don't use up more than sustainability means that you leave at the end of using it as much as was there in the first place. So it's sustainable. You can take it from one generation to the next. That's what sustainability is. So if I were to think about my own self working sustainably, it would mean that I don't burn myself out and then crash because I'm not working in a sustainable work pattern. So if I look at that broader context, then partly sustainability is making sure that I have a department or a function that can continue to run day after day, month after month, year after year. That means a talent pipeline. It means that knowledge is shared. It means that people can grow, move on, and pass on to the next generation. Those are the kind of things. Obviously, there is a very strong focus at the moment, quite rightly so, on climate change and on carbon. And we need to make sure that those practices are as sensible as they can be and as sustainable as they can be. So thinking about what we consume, and be they digital in terms of bits and bytes and data and bandwidth and storage, or physical as in laptops and phones and technology components like that. And there are certain elements to be thought about on both sides. The other piece is around sustainability from a financial perspective. So any organization has to make money to survive, largely, and they've got to make sure that they invest enough so that they can sustain themselves through to tomorrow. If they spend everything that they've got, then they've got no money for tomorrow. But if they underinvest, then they can't generate profits for the following day. So it's all of these various components that need to be considered to make sure that you've got a really strong, sustainable business practice. When implementing change, it's really important to consider the sustainability of that change, the impact of that change, the business benefits of that change, and really separating out those functions is probably heading down the wrong route. You have to think about all of those components together in the same way you have to think about diversity and inclusion as well. They're all components. So we shouldn't be doing a big green initiative, for example, just for the sake of being green. We've got to do it as part of the whole picture, which means that everything we've got to do has got to consider diversity, inclusion, belonging, sustainability, climate impact, and so on. So the challenge is making it normal. If you can make it normal, and just a simple example. If you're buying laptops, so anyone in technology is involved in buying laptops, and they're kind of the curse because you get judged by the quality and the performance of your laptop. And if you don't get that right, how can you really talk authoritatively about digital transformation? But when you're buying those laptops, if you are going down with a very specific single financial lens, you start buying cheaper and you say, well, we haven't got the budget. But what's the sustainability of that? So one of the first things I did is significantly upgrade the specification of the equipment that we were buying. The actual true cost in pounds and pence on a week-by-week basis per device over its lifetime was practically negligible. The true total cost was significantly higher, but the total cost of ownership was actually cheaper, because by buying slightly cheaper devices, you were shortening their lifetime. So having a practice where it's financially sustainable, you have a longer lifetime, and then let's flip that into sustainability, okay? 70 plus 80% of the carbon consumed in the life of a laptop or the life of a phone or a tablet is in the manufacture. So if you're buying a device and you're using it only for 2.5 years and then disposing of it, then the amount of carbon used is not that different for that device if you were to do it over 4 years or even 5 years. So buying much higher quality, high performance, higher capacity with really good support contracts so they can be repaired and not be replaced means that you're reducing the carbon footprint of your estate almost immediately. Every single device that everyone's using gets reduced significantly if you're able to keep it 2 years more, 3 years more. So as a digital or technology leader, I think often you're now seeing some of those leaders in that space taking on responsibility for sustainability within the boardroom. You're also seeing it in finance directors or people who are responsible for facilities as well, because immediately you think about gas and electricity, you think about double glazing, triple glazing, and insulation. So it goes there, but clearly your tech footprint is significant. It's consuming a lot of energy. So I think it's important, as a general rule, I think it's important that tech leaders are not just sitting around the table talking about tech. They are talking about business, operations, sustainability, and all of those key pieces. But when it comes to sustainability specifically, I think tech leaders are in a really strong position to fly that flag. Maybe partner up with a finance director, because if you can make an impact on the bottom line. I'll give you one example. Using public cloud services, okay? So you can take a really strong sustainability view on this, or you can take a financial view on it, and the end result probably is the same. So if you think really, it's about consumption. And if you move into the public cloud, then your cost is directly related to your consumption. You reduce your cost, you reduce your consumption, you reduce your footprint, and they're all related. So we can focus clearly. Why would we want to be spinning thousands of servers 24/7 in a private data center, which is clearly not great? If you can be in the public cloud, partly you don't obfuscate responsibility from yourself, but you certainly shift some of that responsibility to the likes of Microsoft or Google or Amazon, who are investing colossal amounts of money on sustainable energy, renewable energy, net zero, carbon negative practices. So it's a really good way of signposting and signaling to the rest of the board that we're thinking about all of these components along the way, and we are trying to reduce our cost, but also trying to reduce our footprint. And sometimes it's a case you have an old data center. I'm talking about servers, it's a bit boring, but that does use a lot of energy, doesn't it? Sometimes you've got an old data center in the back cupboard in one of your buildings, and it looks cheap because you're not replacing the hardware, but clearly you've got business risk being increased, and that hardware is consuming massive amounts of power and also cooling. They're literally producing heat, which you're cooling, produce heat, which you're cooling, and it's just a horrible cycle. So I think migration to public cloud is a really key component of that, but just making sure that we're looking at that from a tech perspective, a business risk perspective, a cost management, a sustainability perspective, and keeping the focus on all of those components and keeping them in sync with each other. Really excited and privileged to be attending COP26 in Glasgow in the next few days. And I was invited by Open UK, who are trying to show sustainability, understanding sustainability in different ways. If we've all got to keep reinventing this technology and paying for this technology, rather than open sourcing it and making it accessible and really giving everybody a lift up, that's the role that I'm playing there is as part of Open UK's global open source initiative, both on software and hardware. I'm hoping just to be inspired by the exhibitions, inspired by the people that I meet, to listen, to observe, to learn, and to meet new people. I really want to strengthen my own network in the sustainability space. It's growing, finally growing. The importance of this climate emergency is growing, and really understand what role I can play and what impact I can have to try and really move the dial on moving towards reduced carbon emissions, and trying to have a planet for our kids and our kids that is not full of hurricanes and tornadoes and floods and all the kind of grisly things that are happening already. And the wildfires, thinking about wildfires because I was having to drive around a wildfire in Athens this summer, and it's pretty grim. And we've got to get this stuff under control and all do our bit and take responsibility for that.